meanings of hospitable welcome and an openness to the world, as much as simultaneously possessing the cultural confidence to leave it intact as a reminder that the Raj happened so that then we know that it also passed. And it passed by because of our collective might. We overcame this foreign invader by the solidarity of peaceful resistance. The gateway, therefore, in its contemporary complexity of meanings, is a locus for reflection, pondering, and debate. There could not be a more fitting place to commemorate the cowardly attacks on this day, 9 years ago, that occurred at various places across our city, including at the landmark just across the street. 9 years ago on this day, these attacks were to me a wake-up call. But the question I asked myself was, wake up, yes, but wake up to what? I woke up to a new era of violence, a new kind of violence, a violence that was inflicted by terrorism. I woke up to the fact that terrorism is not an ideology. It is an act of scaring peaceful people, an act of evoking the fear of sudden, untimely death. It is an act of negotiating at the point of a gun. Terrorism is not an act of faith. Terrorism can never replace another ideology. And there is before us a true evidence of that. Ladies and gentlemen, the same children who held the same guns and ammunition in the trenches of Afghanistan to fight a foreign invasion of their land, the same children who were paid wages and salaries to kill and be killed in those battles became professional mercenaries after they began to use the same training and weapons out of hatred, malice, and vengeance. Whatever political rhetoric may say, terrorism is neither a form of justice nor even an instrument of justice. It is the whimsical randomness of evil. So how does an unarmed, peaceful humanity fight the fear of terrorism's sudden violence? How does anyone who believes in a life of merit and hard work begin to believe in the authority of guns and bombs? Will armed mercenaries decide the future of our children? Will the threat of violence decide what is right or wrong, good or bad? Will terror decide what is true, false, correct, incorrect, good, bad, and right or wrong? No. Terror does no such thing. Terror does not decide anything. Terror only hopes to establish the bluff that evil can be stronger than natural humanity, that hate is mightier than love. It is now for each one of us to decide if we want our children to accept this evil doctrine, or show our children that terror does not have a place in our hearts. An estimated 20 lakh people were killed during the partition of this country in 1947. And several times more than that were displaced. When people are divided by distrust, when friends and neighbors stop trusting each other, when a nation turns into hostile islands of random fear, then our world is broken into fragments. Broken by narrow domestic walls. This is precisely what terror aims to achieve. Terror does not preserve anything. It is designed to destroy. Once unleashed, terror cannot be stopped by a debate. An act of terror, therefore, is not open to negotiations or to wisdom. It can only be repelled, repulsed, and destroyed by a more powerful reaction. There are no two ways about that. A corrective action is necessary. But that does not end there. When a farm is infested by weeds, a weed killer does not hold them from growing again after the next rain. The farmer has to pull them out one by one, every single weed by its roots. Terror to be prevented before germinating must be rooted out. We know that the war on terror worldwide has not eliminated the root cause of terrorism so far, and it doesn't look likely if the same method is expected to give different results. And here is where I think we must fall back on Mahatma Gandhi's Satyagraha. Satyagraha, in its truest form, as in the persuasion of truth. Ladies and gentlemen, the perception that moderates are not relevant in the war on terror is a rather myopic and short-sighted vision. Moderates are not part of this struggle because both the handlers of terror and the agents of resistance consider moderates to be passive and disempowered. Yet the prime victims of terror are moderates. More than 70% of our nation is moderate. And as moderates, we must recognize that to vilify a foe is no victory at all. To understand a foe is the first act of strength in resistance. To understand a foe, we must first understand ourselves. To understand ourselves, we must ask not what we are against, for that is defining ourselves by the ideas of our foe, by their power. Rather, to understand ourselves, we must ask what we are for. To understand ourselves, we can only do so together. To understand ourselves as a collective together is to find the time for debate, discussion, argument, listening to each other, trying to understand differing points of view, engaging, challenging our ways of thinking, and honoring each other with compassion. These are the answers to violence and death. If we are to be for anything, then to start with, what we must be for is that we are for each other. That is solidarity. And history has shown that our country's solidarity is strong as oak. The colonial rulers laughed at our Mahatma Gandhi when he spoke of this vision. His passive resistance suffered unimaginable brutality during its campaign. But we know the result. This approach wiped out the foundations of imperial colonialism from the face of the earth. The time has come now for us moderates to unite once again. It is time to invoke the Mahatma Satyagraha of peaceful, non-violent, non-cooperation. Not only must we boycott violence, but everything that breeds it. We must rise up with one voice as a nation of moderates and say no to the terrorists that one knows shall have the most impactful relevance ever. It's very simple, really. A parasite cannot kill and survive in the same host at the same time. We must refuse to host terrorists. We do not want to be the cause for breeding an outlaw. When we say no, when we do not cooperate, we're not defending anything. When we say yes, we are cooperating and we are defending evil. And so today, standing at the feet of the gateway, this is my prayer. All those who live for humanity, all those who live for the children of tomorrow, must now realize that it is time to rise and say no. Uproot every weed from our surroundings, one weed at a time. Do not threaten. Do not fight. Do not kill. Do not injure. Simply refuse to cooperate at any cost. Do not feed the evil. Do not host the parasite called the terrorist. And then may we all live in the dream of Gurudev Tagore's words, "Into that heaven of freedom, my father, let my country awake." अंत में आपके सामने पूज्य बाबूजी की एक कविता पढ़ना चाहूंगा जो मैं समझता हूं कि आज के इस कार्यक्रम से संबंध रखती है और उसे एक स्वर, एक दिशा दिखाती है। कविता का शीर्षक है खून के छापे। खून के छापे। ये एक स्वप्न है, एक समीक्षा है। सुबह सुबह से उठकर क्या देखता हूं कि मेरे द्वार पर खून रंगे हाथों के कई छापे लगे हैं। सुबह सुबह उठकर क्या देखता हूं कि मेरे द्वार पर खून रंगे हाथों के कई छापे लगे हैं और मेरी पत्नी ने एक स्वप्न देखा है कि एक नर कंकाल आधी रात को एक हाथ में खून की बाल्टी लिए आता है और दूसरा हाथ उसमें डुबोकर हमारे द्वार पर एक छापा लगाकर चला जाता है। फिर एक दूसरा आता है, फिर एक दूसरा, फिर एक दूसरा, एक दूसरा। ये बेगुनाह खून किनका है? क्या उनका जो सदियों से सताए गए, जगह जगह से भगाए गए? This is reference to the persecution of the Jews and the Holocaust. ये बेगुनाह खून किनका है? क्या उनका जो सदियों से सताए गए, जगह जगह से भगाए गए, दुख सहने के इतने आदी हो गए कि विद्रोह के सारे भाव ही खो गए और जब मौत के मुंह में जाने का हुक्म हुआ, निर्विरोध चुपचाप चले गए और उसकी विषैली सांसों में घुटकर सदा के लिए सो गए। उनके रक्त की छाप अगर लगनी थी तो किसके द्वार पर? ये बेजबान खून किनका है? क्या उनका जिन्होंने आत्माहन शासन के शिकंजे की पकड़ से, जकड़ से छूटकर उठने का, उभरने का प्रयत्न किया था और उन्हें दबाकर, दलकर, कुचलकर पीस डाला गया है? उनके रक्त की छाप अगर लगनी थी तो किसके द्वार पर? ये बेपनाह खून किनका है? क्या उनका जो तवारीख की एक रेख से, दिस इज अबाउट द पार्टीशन ऑफ द कंट्री, ये बेपनाह खून किनका है? क्या उनका जो तवारीख की एक रेख से अपने ही वतन में जला वतन है, जो बहुमत के आवेश पर, सनक पर, पागलपन पर अपराधी दंड और वध्य करार दिए जाते हैं, निर्वास, निर्धन, निर्वसन, निर्मम कत्ल किए जाते हैं? उनके रक्त की छाप अगर लगनी थी तो किसके द्वार पर? ये बेमालूम खून किनका है? क्या उन सपनों का जो एक उगते हुए राष्ट्र की पलकों पर झूले थे, पुतलियों में पले थे, पर लोभ ने, स्वार्थ ने, महत्वाकांक्षा ने जिनकी आंखें फोड़ दी हैं, जिनकी गर्दनें मरोड़ दी हैं, उनके रक्त की छाप अगर लगनी थी तो किसके द्वार पर? ये जवान खून किनका है? क्या उनका जो अपनी माटी का गीत गाते, अपनी आजादी का नारा लगाते, हाथ उठाते, पांव बढ़ाते आए थे, पर अब ऐसी चट्टान से टकराकर अपना सिर फोड़ रहे हैं जो न टलती है, न हिलती है, न पिघलती है? उनके रक्त की छाप अगर लगनी थी तो किसके द्वार पर? And this is about the black slavery in the United States of America. ये मासूम खून किनका है? क्या उनका जो अपने श्रम से धूप में, ताप में, धूल में, धुएं में सनकर, काले होकर अपने सफेद खून स्वामियों के लिए साफ घर, साफ नगर, स्वच्छ पथ उठाते रहे, बनाते रहे, पर उन पर पांव रखने, उनमें बैठने का मूल्य प्राणों में चुकाते रहे? उनके रक्त की छाप अगर लगनी थी तो किसके द्वार पर? लेकिन इस अमानवीय, अत्याचार, अन्याय, अनुचित, अकरणीय अकरुण का दायित्व किसने लिया? लेकिन इस अमानवीय, अत्याचार, अन्याय, अनुचित, अकरण का दायित्व किसने लिया? जिसके भी द्वार पर ये छापे लगे, उसने पानी से धुला दिया, चूने से पुता दिया। जिसके भी द्वार पर ये छापे लगे, उसने पानी से धुला दिया, चूने से पुता दिया। किंतु कवि द्वार पर छापे ये लगे रहे, जो अनीतियत की कथा कहें, व्यथा कहें और शब्द यज्ञ में मनुष्य के कलुष दहें। और मेरी पत्नी ने स्वप्न देखा है कि ये नरकंकाल कवि कवि के द्वार पर ऐसे ही छापे लगा रहे हैं, ऐसी ही शब्द ज्वाला जगा रहे हैं, ऐसी ही शब्द ज्वाला जगा रहे हैं। और देवियों सज्जनों, यही प्रार्थना है आज कि इस कार्यक्रम की जो शब्द ज्वाला है, जो शब्द यज्ञ है, एक शब्द अग्नि है, ये सदा जागृत रहे और जीवित रहे और जगी रहे। May the words spoken and expressed tonight remain, ladies and gentlemen, imprinted on all our doors as a reminder of our stories of strength.
Thank you.